everyone. Welcome to lesson 3 of the drafting, pleading and appearances paper. In this lesson, we will focus more on the secretarial standards and the aspects of drafting resolutions and notices. So this is the scope of our discussion in lesson number 3, wherein we would discuss on the collective decision making, the powers of the board, secretarial standards, particularly the mandated ones, which are the board of directors meetings and the general meetings, and then the practical aspects of drafting resolutions. So here the practical aspects will not, I'm not focusing more on making you draft things, but I would give you tips as to how we can draft various resolutions and what is the modus operandi behind drafting the resolutions and notices. Without much delay, let's move forward. Collective decision making is the principle on which the entire Companies Act has been built. The very meaning of the word company is people coming together to do business, correct? So now, when they come together to do business, there is a need to make collective decisions. And these collective decision making bodies are only two in any company. One is the board of director. Second is the general body of members. The general body of members is nothing but the shareholders. Similarly, coming to the aspect of board of directors. So what is the role of board of directors in a collective decision making mechanism? So when a collective decision making mechanism is in place, the board of directors are expected to discuss on various important issues in hand and then collectively vote on the same. Only when certain majority, or rather let us put it this way, only when the required majority is received for a resolution, then the resolution is deemed to have been passed. So what is this concept of resolution? So resolution is the end result of a collective decision making. So when two or three people come together and decide on something, they are basically resolving something, right? So they are resolving that this is what they're going to do. So that is why the name resolution. So the resolutions passing authority or two: one, the board of directors, and second, the general body. The board of directors pass resolutions either at their own, at the meeting held of the board of directors, or even by way of circulation. So resolution by circulation, in a subsequent slides we will see what it is in the secretarial standards, but this is also one mode wherein the directors do not meet physically or personally, but they still vote on a resolution. And then third is committee of directors. So under the board of directors, there is a committee of directors, which is a part of the board. If board consists of 10, the committee might be of 2, 3, right? Or 5. So these are the basics which are there also in your other company law papers, and hence I'm not taking much time on that. Under the general body, we have meetings of the members and resolution by postal ballot. The same way we have resolution by circulation for board of directors, we have postal ballot resolution for members. And under meetings of members, we have two kinds of meetings. One, an annual general meeting, which is held in every calendar year at least once within 6 months of the end of the financial year. And then it's once for a year. And between two AGMs, if you need any approval from the shareholders, then such an EGM, such a general meeting will be called as an EGM, which is extraordinary general meeting, which is held between two AGMs. Okay. And this EGM can be again further into two types, which is by requisition of directors. So where under the Companies Act, where there is a resolution, where any special resolution is required or any ordinary resolution is required from a shareholder during the year between two AGMs, in such a case, then the directors themselves can requisition for an extraordinary general meeting. Whereas the other way around is when the members can requisite a general meeting. So upon the requisition of members also, an EGM can be held, but for which you need a special notice to be given. I mean, not special notice, but you need a requisite majority of people who should apply for such requisition. The requisition has to be from a set criteria of people. So this is again specified in the Companies Act, so I'm not going in detail into it. It's just for the sake of a basic level of knowledge that you need to know this. And then coming to the kinds of resolutions. So the board of directors, either it can be by majority. This we refer to it as requisite majority, or unanimous. So there are only two. Requisite majority is simple, 80%. More than 50% is what is requisite majority. Whereas unanimous resolution is when 100%, each and every member of the director, each and every director of the board shall give his assent, his or her assent. So that is what is unanimous resolution. And since it is board of directors, each director will be counted as one vote. Correct? When it comes to the general body, there are two kinds of resolutions, which is ordinary or special. These resolutions have been defined under the Companies Act. Ordinary means more than 50%, that is more than half of the people have given yes, whereas special resolution is more than 75%, that is more than 3/4 have said yes to a particular resolution. So this is the basic knowledge you need to have in terms of passing of resolutions by under the Companies Act. Coming to the powers of the powers of the board are exercised, few of the powers of the board are exercised only at the board meetings, that is physically held board meetings. Few are the powers which shall be exercised by unanimous consent, as we discussed earlier. And few resolutions of the board of directors are subjected to passing of resolution by the shareholders, special resolutions. So these are restrictions on powers of the board. And there are certain resolutions which are subjected to other approvals, right? So in the subsequent slide, I will take you through the study material and as to what are all the powers which are exercised in accordance with this slide. Got it? So these are certain powers of the board which shall be exercised only at the board meetings, which are as may be prescribed under the Act. And these powers include, these are basically prescribed under section 179 subsection 3, and all these resolutions whenever have been passed shall also be reported to the ROC by way of filing form MJT 14. There are certain exemptions for certain companies, but this is the rule. So these powers include calls on shareholders, authorizing buyback, security issues, borrowing monies, investments, granting loans, approving finance statements, diversification of businesses, mergers, amalgamations or reconstruction, taking overs, and such other matters which are prescribed, which are political contributions, removal of KMPs, appointments, and also appointment of internal auditors and secretarial auditors. So these are certain powers of the board which cannot be dealt with through a resolution by circulation. These powers can be exercised only at a board meeting. So this shall be something which you need to remember. So now, next we will quickly go through what are certain items of business as given under the secretarial standard in addition to this provided under the Act. Secretarial standard further says that noting minutes of the meetings of the committees shall be considered only at a board meeting. So these are all to be considered only at a board meeting. I'll just go through the important ones, right? So considering this compliance certificate, right? Now remuneration appointments, remuneration approvals shall be dealt only at a board meetings. It can MD, hold'em letter, manager. Appointment of such people, RPT transactions, even though not specified there, when you're selling the shares in your subsidiaries, right? And then payments for loss of office, minutes of the unlisted companies, unlisted subsidiaries board meetings, right? Financial results, your own financial results, significant transactions and arrangements by the unlisted subsidiary, show cause notices, demand notices received during the period, right? Foreign exchange exposures which you have during the particular quarter, which you note down of, any joint ventures which you enter or collaboration agreements which you enter, the discussion thereof, these all cannot happen through a circulation resolution by the way of circulation. It has to happen only at a board meeting. So that is the intention, right? So these are all self-explanatory. I'm just trying to skim through all these aspects. Now powers which has to be exercised by unanimous consent, this I rate it the most important because this is unique, right? Now under this, the way there are only three resolutions which need unanimous consent. So you need to remember these three. Number one is to appoint a managing director. If such managing director is MD or manager of one and not more than one other company, right? So particularly it is pertaining to appointment of a managing director under section 203, which you need to know. Next, section 186 subsection 5, which is investments or giving of loans, guarantees or securities, right? So making an investment or giving of loan, guarantee or security, it requires unanimous consent from the board of directors. So this is another unanimous consent provision. And third is in terms of deposits, where the power to remove deposit trustees, the trustees for depositors after issue of circular or advertisement and before expiry of his term. So the power to remove a trustee, the deposit trustee, shall be accessed by the board only upon unanimous consent received from the board of directors. So these are the three provisions where you require unanimous consent of the board of directors, and this is very important. Now, there are certain powers which you exercise subject to passing of special resolution at a general body meeting. or through postal ballot. And these powers A, B, C, if you see, these are pertaining to C: selling, leasing, or disposing of the whole or substantially the whole of the property, investing in trust securities or others, and borrowing monies, and in addition to remit or giving more time for the director to repay the monies. So all these restrictions are subjected to passing of special resolution. So these are called as powers, restriction of powers of the board of directors. So not just 180, even if you look into further 100 section 85, that is provision of loan to directors. In that, if you want to give loans to persons in whom a director is interested, then you should take an ordinary resolution. Next, 186, as we've seen, unanimous consent. Even after unanimous consent, if the limits are exceeded, you should take approval from the shareholders. So even those resolutions come under the resolutions requiring approval from the general body, right? Now, yeah, that's what we have seen here. So power to be exercised subject to approvals of general body or central government. Here, in addition to the EIEID, which we saw earlier, section 180, if you look at here, where if you are paying any remuneration in variance to Schedule 5, in that to MD, whole-time director or manager, you are paying remuneration in variance to Schedule 5, in such cases, you will take central government's approval. Correct? So even though the board's approval is required, again, it is subject to central government's approval. Next, where you are making contributions to bona fide charitable and other funds in excess of the limit of 5% of the average net profits, then general board approval is required. This is under section 81. 186, as I told you earlier, where the loans limits are exceeded, right? And in case of adequacy of profits, similarly again Schedule 5, any Schedule 5 central government approval is required, right? And where in case of listed companies, if you see here, where the disposal of shares in the subsidiary, wherein your shareholding will reduce below 50%, right? And pursuant to which you would lose, I mean, which the basic concept is that you are losing control over that entity. In such cases, such divestment shall be made only under an arrangement approved by the NCLT. So even though the approval of board of directors is required, then the approval of shareholders is also required, then even the approval of the tribunal is required. So that is as per the LODR regulations. Similarly, when you're paying approval remuneration to non-executive directors, then shareholders approval is required. So that is as per LODR regulations. Related party transactions also same LODR regulations you will require, where the limits have been breached, you have to take the approval from the shareholders. And then if you are selling or disposing or leasing assets, more than 20% of the assets of the material subsidiary, in such a case also you need an approval from the court, I mean, which is the tribunal and NCLT, and this is also a requirement from the SEBI LODR regulations. So these are all the transactions which require approvals not just from the board but also from the general body or from the central government or the tribunal. So these are again self-explanatory. So you need to remember at least few of these rules, of these powers, because I mean, in fact, out of your practice as a trainee or even as a company secretary student, when you've gone through all these sections in a separate modules like advanced company law or in your company law, in your executive, and even under the new syllabus, there are various other modules where the Companies Act has been detailedly dealt with. So there you would have already read this, but this is a proper compilation of it. Hence, I'm not going in detail into the procedures of it, but just try to remember, do a skim reading of what are these powers in these 5 broad areas, right? So this is it in terms of the powers of the board of directors. Now, let me introduce you the concept of secretarial standards. So secretarial standards is a concept introduced under the Companies Act 2013. This was never mandatory except under the Companies Act 2013, wherein under section 118 subsection 10, the act said that every company shall observe secretarial standards with respect to the general and board meetings. And similarly, section 205, which talks about the duties of a company secretary or functions of a company secretary, also specified that it is one of the functions is to ensure the compliance with secretarial standards. So this is where the mandatory nature of the secretarial standards has come into picture. So till then, till the Companies Act 2013 has enacted, secretarial standards was never made mandatory. So now what is the secretarial standards all about? Secretarial standards, unlike accounting standards, do not come up with something new. More or less, the secretarial standards is a compilation of all the requirements under the act. And in addition to it, there are certain good corporate governance principles, or rather good secretarial practices which they have incorporated as part of the secretarial standards in respect of maintenance of minute books, in respect of calling of notices, sending of agendas, notes on agendas, and making an initialing of the reports. There are various aspects which they have introduced because these are part of certain good secretarial practices, right? So with this brief background, let us quickly go into the secretarial standard 1, which is the standard for board meetings. The Secretary Standard on board meetings majorly covers the concepts of convening of meetings, notices, agendas, notes on agenda, frequency of the meetings, quorum, attendance register to be maintained at the board meeting, chairperson, resolution by circulation, the procedure which I said we'll be discussing in the subsequent slides, minutes, how to record, how to maintain minutes, and disclosures. What is a disclosure? So here the disclosure is nothing but the compliance of the standard, whether it has been complied or not, the director shall disclose in their director's report. So this is not a big deal, but this is basically whether you complied with this secretary standard or not, you have to disclose it in your director's report. Now, coming to the other aspects, the important ones of this, I mean, everything is important, but apart from that, I personally feel this is the most important point because rest of it are mandatory, which we can't comply it in any which ways. Whereas coming to agenda and notes on agenda, that is where a lot of discretion of the company secretary will be in place as to what information shall be put forward, what information shall not be put forward on the agenda, and what level of drafting skills you can produce. It is completely shown only in your preparation of your agenda and notes on agenda, right? So with this background, let us rush into each and in every individual concept under the secretarial standard. Firstly, convening of board meetings. So it is very important to know who convenes a board meeting. Can a company secretary, when he wants to convene an AGM, so let us say the minimum, see, 30th September is usually the due date for convening of any AGM. For this year, let's say 2020, 30th September. Now, we know that in order for us to give a notice to an AGM, so this is AGM, okay? In order for me to give a notice of AGM, 21 clear days is important. So let us say on 1st September, in taking all other things into consideration, I want to send off the notice. Now, for me to send a notice on 1st September, such notice has to be approved by the board of directors, which means I have to convene a board of directors meeting to approve AGM notice. Am I right? I mean, since you all are in CS professional, I'm assuming you know things of the procedural aspects under the Companies Act, right? So now, when I want to convene a board meeting to approve a notice, just because the statute mandates an AGM and hence there shall be a board meeting to approve such AGM notice, can a CS without any authorization from anyone convene a board meeting? The answer should be no. Always keep it in mind that the board meeting convening power lies with the directors alone. However, on the requisition of such director, a company secretary, or any person authorized by the board of directors, in the absence of a company secretary, any person authorized by the board of directors, or company secretary, even if it is, I mean, why I said in the absence, for the simple reason that usually it will be the company secretary alone who will be authorized. However, where it is impossible for the company secretary to convey a meeting, then the board can authorize any other person to issue a notice. To convene a meeting, rather to convene a meeting. So the requisition shall flow from the director. So it is very important for the company secretary to understand that he or she cannot on their own initiate a board meeting or convene a board meeting. And the convening of board meeting shall be by a director or a company secretary or any person authorized by the board of directors. However, for a company secretary or a person authorized by the board of directors, it shall be purely upon the requisition of a director. Right? Now, next. In addition to this, it's also important that all these three people, either the director or the CS or any person authorized, shall convene a board meeting only in consultation with the chairman, the chairperson, or in the absence of a chairman, the managing director, or in the absence of both, then the whole-time director, unless the AOA provides otherwise. So where an AOA provides a certain procedure, you comply that, but if that is not provided, then such convening shall be only in consultation with these three. So this is the basic thing which you need to know as a company secretary. Now, The next and the foremost important thing is the concept of issuing a notice. So when I issue a notice, what did the Secretary Standard majorly bring a difference to is the first one, which is the serial number of the board meeting. So now the Secretary Standard demands that every notice shall specify a serial number of the board meeting. The reason why they have been stringent in this is that there have been a lot of practices by many companies where they hold multiple board meetings, no physically held meetings. They go and do a backdated board meeting without properly managing the secretarial compliances in a right way. So in order to curb such practices, now they mandate that each board meeting has to be numbered serially in accordance with the date of the board meeting. Either such serial number shall be for a particular financial year or it can run across. So you can say 150th board meeting, or for that financial year it is a third board meeting, then third board meeting of the financial year 2019-20 or 2021. So like that you can modify it as per your company's policy. And remember this DDTV, Doordarshan television, on a funnier note, but it is basically day, date, time, and venue. So remember this. This has to be there in every notice. This also comes in a Secretary Standard 2. It also comes in the agenda. I'm sorry, in the minutes as well. So DDTV, that is the day, date, time, and venue, are mandatory in any notice. And the reason why it is mandatory, because remember, in case of a board meeting, venue can be anywhere. Unlike a general body meeting, in a general body meeting, venue can be only within the city limits where your registered office is situated. Whereas coming to the board of directors meeting, venue can be anywhere, and hence stipulating a venue in the notice is very important. And such delivery can be either by way of electronic mode, that is fax or email, and it can be by hand also, by registered post or speed post. If it is by hand, make sure you're taking an acknowledgement from the director. Maintaining acknowledgement is very important whenever any notice has been given. So maintaining acknowledgement is very important. Next, you have to ensure that such reports have been signed by director, right? So, I mean, in the sense, the notice has been signed by the company secretary or the director or the person authorized. So whoever is convening shall also sign the same. So that is another important element. Next, it shall provide, the notice shall also provide an option for the directors to participate through electronic mode. So if the directors are willing to participate through electronic mode, they have an option. As you know, under the Companies Act, particularly section 108 read with the relevant rules, specify that you have to provide for an e-voting facility. And not just that, I'm sorry, that e-voting is for the general body meeting, but however, applying the same logic in case of a board of directors meeting where e-voting is possible. So even if it is like, the basic rule you have to remember is that you should provide an option for the directors to participate through electronic means. However, if a director is willing to participate through electronic means, he can give a notice right at the beginning of the financial year that he is willing to participate in the board meeting through electronic means. That option is there at the director side, in which case in every meeting he need not give his intention to participate through electronic means, right? So this is very important. Next is the notice period. So as per the Companies Act also, 7 days prior notice is something which is very important. However, there is also an option to provide a shorter notice, but it is allowed only subject to the condition that in such a meeting where it is called by a shorter notice, at least one independent director shall be present, or it shall be ratified by at least one independent director. So where if such independent director is also not present at the board meeting, it is still fine. You circulate the proceedings of such board meeting to all the directors and get it ratified by at least one independent director. Even then, your resolutions which have been passed in such a board meeting will be held valid. And also most importantly, then such notice calling for a board meeting at a shorter notice shall specify that it is called at a shorter notice. It is also really important. Again, coming to my favorite concept of agenda and notes on agenda. So the concept is very clear. If for every notice, there will be an agenda attached, because you need to tell the people, yes, there's a board meeting, but what am I going to discuss in the board meeting? What are the directors going to deliberate in the board meeting? That is what is the agenda. And the notes on agenda is for every agenda item, give them a particular explanation. Why was this agenda item picked? What are they going to do in this agenda item? And give them such relevant information which can give a way, or which can help them decide in favor or against that resolution. So that is the importance of notes on agenda. So which is drafted by a company secretary. So you have to be very cautious in drafting such notes on agenda, because that decides or that makes up the mind of the director who is deciding on such resolution. So that is very important skill which a company secretary is expected to perform. And similar to a notice, even this has a 7 days prior. I mean, it has to be also go to the directors at least 7 days before the meeting. However, there are certain items which come under the concept of unpublished price sensitive information like financial results. It has the same definition as defined under the prohibition of insider trading code regulations. So this unpublished price sensitive information, any item irrelevant to it, can be given at a shorter notice. Even on the day of the meeting, at the meeting you can give. For example, financial results, as I said earlier, they cannot be given at least 7 days before, right? Because in such case, the directors will be in possession of such UPSI, and which is not correct because they are insiders. Hence, in such case of UPSI, you can take a general approval. So we take a general consent from the directors to give such agenda or no, I mean such notes on agenda at a shorter notice or also on the date of the AGM. So you have to take a general consent that these are the items which come under the UPSA, which will be given only on the date of the meeting, and this general consent shall be taken every year. So it is valid only till the end of the financial year. After that, again, the first meeting you take a general consent and let them know that so the directors, you will be given notes on agenda or relevant material on this particular item of business only on the board meeting. It cannot be given to you 7 days before the board meeting. So that is the criteria behind that, right? Now, so where you wanted to discuss an item of business which is not stated in your agenda. In such a case, you have to take the consent of the chairperson of the meeting and also majority of directors. With their consent, you can put forward such agenda which was not disclosed in the agenda or which has been sent along with the notice. So this is what is the concept of notice, agenda, and notes on agenda. Yeah, from now on, these are all something which are there in the Companies Act only. The frequency of board meetings, at least 4 in a calendar year, maximum interval of 120 days between two board meetings. And in the first board meeting of a company shall be within 30 days of the incorporation of the company. And coming to the committee meetings, it shall be as may be specified by the Companies Act or as required by the board of directors. The frequency shall vary accordingly. And the meeting of the independent directors, at least one independent directors meeting in a financial year, and this is specified in the Schedule 4 to the Companies Act 2013. Now, quorum. Again, and under the quorum, so firstly, if I will take you through this quorum part of the 1/3 of the total strength or two, whichever is higher, this is again as per the Companies Act, right? So which is 1/3 of the total strength of the board of directors, which excludes obviously your alternative directors. So apart from that, all the directors you compute and multiply it 1/3, that would be your minimum quorum, or two, whichever is higher. And two important points you need to remember is when you're computing the quorum, you should make sure that it is not just at the beginning of the meeting that people are present, that the directors are present. They have to be present throughout the meeting, which means for every resolution, you should ensure that adequate quorum is being present. If they are not present, if the adequate quorum is not present, then the resolutions passed by such by such directors shall be deemed to be invalid. And next, if there is any interested director, so interested director has been defined under the Companies Act. So if they are there in the meeting, then they shall be excluded from the quorum. So leave them and count the rest. Only the rest of the people will form part of the quorum. This interested director will not form part of the quorum. This is another important learning. And apart from this, remember that if suppose, let us say a company has got less than minimum number of directors. Let us say minimum number of directors is 2 in a private limited company, 3 in a public limited company. If it is reduced below this particular number, in such a case, such directors shall meet only and solely for the purpose of increasing the number of directors, or rather appointing a new director. They cannot deal, the existing director or the existing directors in case of a public company cannot deal with any other business except for making the minimum number of directors for such a company. Or another thing they can do is to call for a general body meeting who can appoint a director. So these are the only two things I can do. Got it? So where the minimum number of directors has been decreased below the minimum required under the code, then we cannot transact any other business unless such minimum number is made up. So we have to make such minimum number by appointing a new director by the directors themselves or by calling for a general body meeting in order to appoint such director. So this is another important learning under the quorum. Now coming to the concept of attendance at the board meetings. So we basically call it as an attendance register. So usual practice of the few of the companies was that the attendance register and the minutes both are combined, and they will be bound together. But now the second standard is very clear. Attendance register shall be separately maintained. So you need to maintain a separate attendance register which contains only the attendance of the directors at the board meetings. And such attendance register shall be preserved for at least 8 financial years. So apart from that, the attendance register shall contain the names and signatures of all the directors. If he is absent, then it is different, but all the directors has to be present. The CS has to sign, and others whoever have attended the meeting shall also sign the attendance register. And such attendance register shall contain the board meeting serial number and also DDTV, that is day, date, time and venue. Now, one important thing under the attendance is that of the leave of absence. So when you're granting a leave of absence, always remember it shall not be granted unless requested, right? So remember these words: unless the director requests a leave of absence, the board of directors cannot grant such leave of absence. So if a director has not communicated that he is going to be absent for the board meeting, in such a case, there cannot be any leave of absence which shall be granted. So you should be very clear while you're drafting the minutes. When you say granted, it means you have to have a backup document that a request has been made by the director to grant a leave of absence by the board of directors. So that is very important. Keep it in mind. And in addition to this leave of absence, you need to also remember the Companies Act concept of vacation of directors, right? So under vacation of directors, it is very clear that one, with a director, whether with or without leave of absence, if he is absent for all meetings, all board meetings held in a span of 12 months, then such director is deemed to have vacated his office as a director. So even from the director's point of view, it is very important. And as a matter of inspection, where do they look into? They look into the attendance registers to check whether this director has been present in the meetings or not. That is the relevance of an attendance register. Now coming to the concept of chairman. So the chairman of the company, that is the chairman of the shareholders, shall be the chairman of the board of directors as well, because that he is the one who has been appointed by the members. However, in the absence of such an appointment, then the directors themselves will appoint one of themselves to act as the chairperson of the board meetings in each meeting. Or if the chairman of the company is absent in a board meeting himself, then the existing directors will appoint one among themselves to be the chairperson for that meeting. And when it comes to the committee meetings, such the position of chairperson shall be as may be decided or resolved by the board of directors, or shall be the same way elected by the members of that respective committee. Now coming to another important concept, which is resolution by circulation. So as I told earlier, resolution by circulation is such a resolution where board of directors do not meet at a venue. So board of directors will decide on a resolution just by way of circulation of such resolution through any means. So such resolution by circulation, the decision to make to get a resolution passed by circulation shall be made by a chairperson or a managing director or a director. And if 1/3 of the directors require that such resolution has to be decided at a board meeting, then such a resolution by circulation shall not be conducted, and it has to be mandatorily put forward before the board meeting. So this is a very important point you need to remember. If 1/3 of the directors say that this resolution cannot be decided to resolution through circulation by resolution by circulation, it's rather to be decided only at a board meeting, then the chairperson shall consider such resolution only at a board meeting. And what is the procedure for it? Firstly, you need to prepare a draft resolution, and along with the draft resolution, include necessary papers which can help the director to understand the rationale behind the resolution, and also provide an explanatory note explaining what is this resolution all about, and then circulate it to all the directors, and also specify the last date within which you need a reply from them, which is we usually 7 days from the date of dispatch. Next, it is usually deemed, so when is it deemed to have been passed? It is deemed to have been passed either on the last date prescribed in the resolution by circulation, that is the note, the document which is being sent, or on the receipt of the requisite majority. So if the requisite majority is 50% or more, then if such requisite majority is received from the directors, then whichever is earlier, so the earlier of the last date or the receipt of the requisite majority shall be considered as the date on which such resolution is deemed to have been passed. And remember that any resolution passed through resolution by circulation shall have the same validity as if it has been passed at a board meeting. So validity wise, it is not at all different. However, how do we maintain a minutes for this? Because there are no directors present or absent for this, right? So in such a case, how the rule is that you have to firstly make a note of such passing of resolution by circulation in the subsequent board meeting held. So in the subsequent board meeting, a note will be made. So the note will be like taking note of the resolution passed by way of circulation. And the same shall be recorded in the minutes of such meeting. So the minutes of the meeting, that is a subsequent meeting after this resolution by circulation, shall also record the resolution passed by way of circulation, right? So this is the concept of resolution by circulation. And to add few additional things here, yeah, I think we have covered everything in terms of this. Yes. Now, coming to the concept of minutes. So minutes is the heart and soul of the secretarial standards, both the secretarial standards. So you should remember that. Why? The reason is the secretarial standards have been issued under section 118, and the section 118 is majorly concerned with the concept of minutes. Hence, you should focus more on this in both the secretarial standards. So first and foremost, the minutes shall be a separate bound of book. So it has to be a separate book. If you're maintaining leaves, that is separate pages, then you should be a separately bound book, or rather a separate book shall be maintained for the purpose of minutes. And second, each page of the minute shall be consecutively numbered throughout all the board meetings, throughout volumes. You cannot have a meeting wise page number. Suppose there are 4 board meetings in a year, in a financial year, then the first board meeting had got 40 pages for its minutes. Then the second board meeting shall start with the 41st page. The page shall be numbered 41. It shall not be numbered 1 just because it is a new meeting. And here if you observe, this makes tampering very difficult. Suppose if there are 4 board meetings held and you have kept all the pages running, and now if you want, if there is a kind of a backdating which is suggested, then you have to particularly change everything and try to insert something in the middle, change the page numbers. It will be an Herculean task, and also it is illegal. You should not do it. So first, in order to like provide much more stringent at the same time, a good secretarial practice is to consecutively number the pages of the minutes book and maintain volumes. If suppose the book is finished, then volume 2, volume 3, like that. And again, as I said earlier, a minute shall contain the serial number of such meeting, the type, the board meeting, if it's a board meeting of so and so, and it also shall contain the day, date, time, and venue. And the minute shall particularly start after the basic title. The minute shall start with the names of the directors present. All the directors who are present shall be given. Second, the company secretary's name shall be present in the minutes, and then the invitees who have come. And then also you have to look into who are all the people who are absent. So the one who are absent also shall be specified. Next, the minutes shall necessarily record all the appointments made in the board meeting. So whoever has been appointed, such appointment shall particularly be made a note of in the minutes. And whatever all the deliberations which have happened in the meetings shall be summarized. And if there are major decisions taken, even the rationale behind such decision shall be discussed and deliberated and has to be present in the minutes. And this is the reason why drafting of minutes will become very crucial in large corporates, because large stakes are involved, and minutes book acts as the conclusive evidence of the decisions taken at the board meetings, and hence the drafting of the minutes book in such corporates become a very important task, and that is where the company secretary's role and responsibility will become really significant. Hence, this paper on drafting of minutes, that is the reason why it has been emphasized to make you understand as a student the relevance of drafting of minutes. Right? Fine. Let's go further. The reports, notes, or presentations. So usually, in order for the directors to make certain decisions, the company will give the directors a lot of reports, various notes made by them, and they will also present some few presentations also will be made electronically in during the meetings. So all these things have to be neatly documented, and it has to be initialed either by the chairperson or by the company secretary. The reason is these have aided the board of directors to take certain decisions. Hence, it has to form part of your necessary papers which you maintain alongside your minutes. Right? Next, every meeting of a minutes, every meeting of a board of directors shall necessarily take note of the preceding minutes, right? Similarly, that's what is the basic thing, that any subsequent board meeting will basically first thing they will do is to take note of the minutes of the board meeting of the previous board meeting, right? So that is what is the next point. And in case an earlier resolution is modified or superseded, then in such a case, the reference to such earlier resolution has to be made. So one example here is usually whenever the bank the credit facilities are increasing, right? So we will supersede the previous resolution or we will modify. So in case of increase of limits, we purely modify it because the limits have increased. So we will say rest all things remaining the same. The loan facility shall increase from 500 crores to 1000 crores. So this is a modification of the resolution. So in such a case, we have to give a reference to what is the resolution which I am modifying. So that is very important, right? Let's move further. Now, finalization of minutes. So whatever we have seen are a few requirements under drafting of minutes. Now coming to the finalization of minutes, and you first have to remember that whenever you make minutes, the draft minutes thereof shall be circulated within 15 days of the board meeting. So once the board meeting ends, within 15 days, you have to prepare draft meeting minutes and circulate it to all the board of directors for their comments. Right? And when the comments are received, the chairperson will decide which comments have to be accepted, which should not be. Okay? Accordingly, the company secretary will act. Now, when the final minutes are prepared, they shall be entered by the company secretary within 30 days of the conclusion of the board meeting. So there are three stages. First, draft minutes. Second, entering of the minutes. Third, signing of the minutes. So the draft minutes preparation, circulation 15 days. Entering of the final minutes shall be within 30 days of the conclusion of the board meeting. And then signing of the minutes shall need not be in this 30 days period. It can be at any time. So if the chairperson of such meeting is signing, it can be at any time before next board meeting. If chairperson of the next board meeting is signing, then it shall be at such next board meeting. So this is important. When do they sign? So when they're signing, they should sign along with their name and date and place at which they are signing. And such signed minutes again shall be further circulated within 15 days from the date on which the minutes have been signed. So this is very important. Next comes the inspection of minutes. So always remember as a company secretary that board of directors minutes are the confidential documents which shall not be disclosed anywhere. You will not even find it on ROC. Even the resolutions passed by the board which have been filed to the ROC under section 179 subsection 3 using MJT 14 are not disclosed because they are confidential. Any board deliberation of every company are confidential in nature, and even the members are prohibited from accessing the same. The only person who can inspect the minutes will be the directors themselves. Hence, the director shall have the right to inspect the minutes. And then coming to the concept of preservation, this is a very important learning. Minutes are permanently preserved. So the company secretaries may come, company secretaries may go, but the minutes shall be preserved forever. Right? Now, so this is something which is lifted directly from the secretarial standard. So these are the things which shall be contained in any minutes, right? So I'll just skim read the entire thing. So as we have already seen, the directors present the mode of attendance. So if they are attending through electronic mode, then in the attendance register, the company secretary shall authenticate that so and so person has been present through electronic mode, right? Next. The name of the company secretary who is in attendance shall be specified, invitee shall be specified, chairperson. So the minute shall also tell who has been elected as the chairperson. So if there is any election, as we discussed earlier, in case there is no chairperson of the company, then it has to be elected. So in such a case, that is done. Then you also have to record the presence of quorum. So the minute shall contain that the quorum is being present. And in case of leave of absence, as I said earlier, you have to specify who sought the leave of absence and who were granted the leave of absence. And noting of the minutes of the preceding meeting. So we have seen every meeting's minutes shall be noted at the subsequent meeting. So vice versa, in every meeting, the previous minutes of the previous meeting shall be noted. Then noting the minutes of the meetings of the committees. So any committee meeting minutes shall also be taken note by the board of directors in their subsequent board meeting. Next, all the resolutions passed by circulation, as we discussed earlier, it has to be taken note in the subsequent board meeting. So this might not be the case every time, but whenever any resolution by circulation has been passed, the subsequent board meeting shall take note of the resolution passed by way of circulation, and the minutes also shall contain such resolution. And you should very clearly record that an interested director did not participate in the discussions in the board meeting. So this is again very important. Then any views of the directors which are not defamatory, whatever which are not defamatory in nature, all such views shall be adequately recorded, because tomorrow these are the evidences as to what they spoke, what were their grievance. So that has to be clearly and adequately recorded in the meeting and the minutes. And if a director has left in the middle of a meeting and for so and so items of business he did not participate, then that fact also has to be specified as to, if suppose 3 resolutions he was not present, then he has to specify that this director did not participate in such 3 meetings. However, the quorum was still present. So that also has to be made, right? And in case there was any dissent received from any director, the fact that the dissent has been received from such director shall also be recorded. And where there is a meeting held at a shorter notice, the fact that the items have been, or the proceedings have been ratified by the independent directors shall be clearly specified in your minutes, right? In case any additional items have been considered apart from what has been specified in the agenda, as we told earlier, you need to take the consent of the chairperson and also majority of the directors. So the fact that a consent has been received shall also be specified in the minutes of the board meeting, right? And at the end, you should always remember the time of commencement. So DDTV, where we said date, time and venue. So there the time is the commencement time. In addition to the commencement time, even the conclusion time of the board meeting shall also be clearly entered into. So this marks the end of the concept of minutes of board of directors, right? Board of directors meetings. So this in whole is what is the secretarial standard dealing with the board of directors meetings. So next, let us look into the secretarial standard dealing with the general body meetings, that is the general meetings. So secretarial standard on general meetings is a bit wider than the board meetings because of the complexity, that is large shareholders and the e-voting and all involved. So under this, we will essentially cover the concepts of convening of a meeting just like we did for the board meeting, then quorum, attendance, the same part, chairman, how it will happen, the concept of proxies, it is in addition, voting, wherein we will discuss e-voting and poll. Then this another very important and my favorite concept, which is withdrawal, modification and rescinding of resolutions, how we do it, and this is practically also very relevant. Then reading of reports like auditor's report or statutory auditor report, how will it be read before the shareholders, adjournment of the meeting, concept of postal ballot, minutes, a report on AGM which is introduced under the Companies Act 2013, and again as we discussed earlier, disclosure. So disclosure is again in the disclosure in the director's report as to whether the secretarial standards have been complied by the company or not in terms of holding of general body meetings. So this is it. This is what we'll be discussing in the subsequent slides on secretarial standards applicable for general meetings.